The movie opens on a dark night with a woman frantically running through the woods. She is carrying something in her hands and two policemen are chasing after her. Shortly after, she reaches the edge of a cliff and has nowhere to go. The policemen speak to her through a megaphone and ask her to drop whatever she is holding. The scared woman reluctantly complies and puts her bag on the ground. Surprisingly, a little baby comes out of it and starts crawling towards her. The policemen then ask the woman to put her hands up, but she deliberately walks backwards and falls off the cliff, leading to her demise. Horrified, the cops rush to save the baby, who is also crawling towards the edge. But they are a second late, and the baby also ends up meeting the same fate as its mother. I guess no one told that baby to watch out and take care. The scene then shifts to our protagonist, a free-spirited woman named Natasha. She is currently engaged in a game of poker with her best friends, Mags and Rita. Turns out the three have this tradition of meeting once every month so that they can have a fun time. Natasha in particular takes the reunion very seriously, as it is her only escape from her busy work schedule. But today, their fun time is continuously interrupted by Mags's young infant whom she has brought along. When Natasha cannot take it any longer, she says mean things about having a baby. This expectedly offends Mags, and she storms off from there in anger. Once she's gone, Rita shares that she's also pregnant. She reveals that she's in her 3rd month, but Natasha once again makes an insensitive comment by saying it's not too late. Enraged by her behavior, Rita also leaves the house abruptly. Now that her friends have left her, Natasha decides to take a week-long vacation. The very next morning, she gathers her stuff and drives all the way to a remote cabin near the sea. It is located right below a steep hill. That night, Natasha tries to watch some reels on her Instagram, but all she sees is pictures of her friends having babies and getting pregged. Annoyed, she goes out of the cabin to have a smoke, but as soon as she lights a cigarette, a human drops to the ground from the above hill, splattering blood all over her. It is actually the same woman from the opening scene. Then, the tiny baby also falls, but Natasha manages to catch it in the nick of time. In the next scene, the two cops from earlier arrive at the cabin and try to interrogate Natasha, but she is too shaken by the incident and simply asks them to leave with the baby. After closing the door on them, the cops reluctantly get into their car and proceed to depart. But seconds later, a massive boulder falls on them from top of the hill, killing them instantly. This show was written with Mad Libs. When Natasha rushes to the location to check, she finds the mysterious baby still alive. Unwilling to leave it alone, she decides to take it to the police station herself. On the way, Natasha stops at a gas station with the intention of cleaning up her bloodied face. The kind storekeeper offers to look after the baby while she uses the restroom. Natasha thanks him and heads inside, but once she finishes up cleaning, she quietly sneaks out of the window. She then gets inside her car and attempts to get away. However, it just won't start, almost as if something is stopping her, almost as if the baby has powers. At this moment, Natasha hears a loud bang coming from inside the store. She rushes to investigate and comes across a horrifying sight. The storekeeper lying in a pool of blood. It appears that a large shelf fell on top of him, crushing his head.
He deserved it, Mama.
Freaked out, Natasha grabs the baby and heads to the police station. Upon reaching there, she narrates the entire incident to an officer. Natasha then hands over the baby and departs, finally relieved that her nightmare is over. In the morning, she cleans up her apartment as usual and proceeds to take out the trash. But when Natasha opens the front door, she is shocked to find the baby waiting for her.
Hello.
The scene then cuts to flashback, and we are taken to a fast food restaurant. Two employees, Lydia and Foos, are chatting when a distressed-looking woman shows up with her baby. They inform her that they're about to close, but the woman requests a cup of coffee. Lydia reluctantly takes the order, while Foos heads home with his pet dog. After a while, when she brings the coffee, the woman suddenly holds her hand, asking her not to go. But Lydia, who is in a hurry, pulls her hand away and heads to the kitchen to wrap up. She then puts on some loud music to distract herself from what just happened. Outside, as the woman eats a cookie, she suddenly begins choking on it. She desperately pleads for help, but Lydia can't hear her due to the loud music. This causes the woman to die, a slow and painful death. When Lydia finally comes out, she is shocked by the horrific sight. The baby, however, is still fine, and it's evident that he's behind all of this.
Cookies are bad for you.
We also get to know that Lydia is the same woman who jumped from the cliff in the opening scene. Back in the present, Natasha decides to hand over the baby to one of Lydia's relatives. She drives to the same fast food restaurant, hoping to gather information about Lydia's family. Upon reaching it, she is greeted by Foos, and they strike up a conversation. Natasha inquires if Lydia had any close relatives, but he reveals that she lived alone and never talked about her parents. Just then, the baby lets out a poop.
Whoops!
And Natasha now has to change his diapers.
That was a good one.
She heads to the bathroom to do the deed, but ends up smearing it all over her hands. Fortunately, Foos hears the commotion and arrives to help. He is surprisingly good with babies and manages to change the diaper effortlessly. Foos then reveals that a month before Lydia passed away, a strange customer had choked to death in this very restaurant. The incident affected Lydia so much that she stopped coming to work and eventually passed away. Hearing this, Natasha gets curious and asks to see the CCTV footage of that day. When Foos plays it, she is shocked to see the same baby with the woman. This finally makes her realize that the toddler is behind all these killings. As the two are busy talking, the baby throws a ball outside and the dog goes to fetch it.
Fetch, Rufus.
Unfortunately, it is run over by a truck, resulting in its brutal death. In the aftermath of this incident, Natasha returns home with the baby. She doesn't know what to do or whom to call for help. At night, as she is contemplating her next move, someone drops a flash drive at her door. Natasha plugs it into her laptop and finds photos of several women with the baby. All of them died under mysterious circumstances, further proving that the baby is a psychopath. Natasha fears that she'll be next, so she decides to get rid of it once and for all. She takes the baby to a secluded farm in the countryside and drops it where no one can find it. But when Natasha proceeds to leave, the baby starts crying. This puts her in a moral dilemma, as on one hand, she doesn't want to die, and on the other, she can't just abandon a baby. In the end, Natasha chooses to save the baby and brings it back into the car. However, when she prepares to drive away, she is greeted by a strange old woman who says,
"We need to talk."
In the next scene, the trio reaches home and the woman introduces herself as Mrs. Eves. She doesn't give much information about herself and simply says that she wants to help. She claims that if they don't stop the baby, it will go on a rampage and claim several lives. Natasha inquires how they can stop it, to which Mrs. Eves says they'll have to kill the baby. Natasha is expectedly against the idea, as she cannot even fathom taking a life. But when the woman explains that she's the next target, she reluctantly complies. Mrs. Eves then suggests that they put the baby to sleep first, as it could cause problems while awake. Natasha likes this idea and starts singing lullabies to the toddler, but to no avail. Did she try Slipknot? Even after hours of effort, the baby just won't sleep. Fed up, she calls her best friend Mags, asking for a solution. The latter is still angry from their earlier encounter, but nonetheless, she reveals that her infant uses a sleep aid named Bun Bun. Natasha doesn't know where to buy one, so she decides to borrow it from Mags. The trio then head to a kid's theme park where Mags is currently with her child. Natasha gets the Bun Bun toy from her and gives it to the baby. It surprisingly works, and the creepy infant finally passes the hell out. But just when Natasha prepares to depart, several kids storm inside the room for a party. This sadly awakens the baby, causing it to burst into tears.
I don't like Bun Bun.
One of the mothers tries to help by adjusting its stroller, but the baby gets angry and uses its powers to chop off one of her fingers. That evening, Natasha goes to her sister Bobby's place, whom she hasn't seen in 3 years. Turns out the latter is a lesbian who is trying to adopt a baby, but Natasha accidentally offends the adoption officer, causing her to postpone the process. After the officer departs, Bobby plays with the baby, and she appears to be very fond of them. She surprisingly manages to put it to sleep, shocking her sister. Later, Mrs. Eves and Natasha reach home and proceed to kill the baby. But our girl once again has a change of heart and starts wrestling Mrs. Eves to grab hold of a knife. Amidst this, there's a sudden knock on the door. Natasha goes to check and finds her sister Bobby outside. She somehow manages to send her away and once again starts tussling with Mrs. Eves. However, when they finally settle down, they realize that the baby is missing. Turns out Bobby heard the commotion and took it away with her. Natasha gets really worried and thinks the baby is going to kill her sister when she learns that Bobby Bobby is headed to their mother's home, she immediately rushes there with Mrs. Eves. The two reach just in time as Bobby is about to choke on a cookie. Natasha then snatches the baby away from her and gets in the car. However, as they prepare to drive off, the vehicle malfunctions, indicating that the baby wants them to stay. Later, Natasha reluctantly goes to her mother's house, whom she is meeting for the first time in 15 years. The two appear to have a strained relationship, but Mom is still happy as she believes the baby is her grandson. She even throws a party to celebrate the occasion. That night, when Natasha and the baby fall asleep, Mrs. Eves approaches the baby and tries to smother it with a pillow. Surprisingly, this causes Natasha to suffocate as well, waking her up abruptly. Her body becomes stiff due to the lack of oxygen, but she still manages to kick the old lady away, saving their lives. In the final scene, we are shown a montage of the different deaths caused by the baby. It makes every instance look like an accident, managing to get away each and every time. We also get to know that Mrs. Eves has been keeping an eye on all the deaths closely. She has been trying to stop the deadly cycle, but the baby just keeps on winning. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.